Welcome back to American Republic. We've so far talked about the simple but true statement that evil triumphs when good men do nothing. This not only applies to world and international affairs like World War II, but could also apply to situations at home or at school or at church. Evil triumphs when good men do nothing. If you ever see a friend or someone you know choosing to do wrong and no one tries to stop them, guess what? They're going to continue to do it, and it's probably going to get worse. The effects will be even greater. Rather, in a loving way, we need to do our best to try to end the evil that's being done in front of us. Well, World War II is now erupting. Roman numeral 2, letter A, Germany expands. We're going to see that while Hitler is rising in power, the good men around him in other countries are not going to do enough to stop him. When Hitler broke some of the rules of the Treaty of Versailles and was not punished, he decided to break more rules. In 1938, he peacefully united Austria with Germany. Here you have a map of Germany located down here. Austria down here. Remember, they had been allies in World War I. Austria was a German-speaking country, and it was peacefully handed over to Germany in a matter of 4 weeks. And the treaty had expressly forbade this union. When opposition didn't materialize, Hitler moved again. He demanded and received the Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia. You can see where Czechoslovakia is located. The area basically, if you think of a peel, a banana peel, or an apple peel or a banana peel, all of the area that is touching Germany, kind of making a C shape, is the Sudetenland. Once again, his claim was that 3.5 million Germans living there deserved to be part of the whole of Germany. Hitler promised that this would be his last territorial claim. Hitler secretly prepared his military to invade Czechoslovakia if he did not gain the Sudetenland peacefully. A conference was called, and basically the results of this conference was appeasement. Great Britain's Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain, who you see pictured there holding the paper, this was where Europe sought to give Hitler what he wanted to avoid war. Neville Chamberlain and Hitler reached an agreement surrendering the Sudetenland to Germany. Did Czechoslovakia, by the way, have a voice in this decision-making? No, they didn't. In fact, Chamberlain announced that there would be peace in our time. Winston Churchill would soon replace Chamberlain as Prime Minister, and he disagreed with this. He warned, "You chose dishonor, and you will have war." Churchill was one of the few before the war to realize that appeasing Hitler was not the answer. Churchill also defined an appeaser as one who feeds a crocodile, hoping it will eat him last. Well, Hitler promised the Sudetenland would be his last territorial acquisition, and he kept that promise. No, he didn't. He then took over all of Czechoslovakia. Appeasement had not worked. Hitler had not kept his promise. All of Europe soon realized that no nation was safe. In 1939, Germany signed a non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union. When Hitler demanded Poland, Britain and France threatened war. Hitler realized that attacking too much of Europe would be unwise, so he made a promise with the Soviet Union that they would not fight each other as they both pursued expansion. With the Soviet Union as an ally, Hitler could focus his attack on Britain and France. Letter B. War envelops Europe. On September 1st, 1939, the German invasion of Poland marked the beginning of World War II. A reason why this is the beginning of the war and not another period was because finally, for the first time, people decided to fight back. The term Blitzkrieg is a German word. It means lightning war. It's where other nations quickly fell under Nazi attacks. Bombers brought the first wave, destroying key targets. Armored tanks called panzers moved in behind. Thousands of soldiers accompanied the tanks as they took control of Poland. These new inventions would make the trench warfare of World War I obsolete as the Germans marched across Europe. The military philosophy of Blitzkrieg was based on lessons learned from World War I and the Spanish Civil War. It was a coordinated attack using combined air, land, and sea forces. Its key characteristics were speed, mobility, flexibility, and the exploitation of circumstances and conditions. The Blitzkrieg was dependent on total air superiority. The first stage involved heavy coordinated attacks on all enemy air bases. Simultaneously, paratroopers were dropped behind enemy lines to cut lines of communication, create confusion, and prevent enemy retreat. In the second stage, forces would feign attacks in several areas at once, thereby distracting the enemy from the area where the focused attack would fall. The final stage, or focused attack, was composed of multiple mechanized divisions of tanks and armored vehicles supported closely by bombers and fighter planes. Together, the mechanized divisions and Air Force would then use pincer movements to surround and seal off enemy strongholds, thereby preventing those troops from escaping or reinforcing troops elsewhere. At the same time that Germany was invading Poland from the west, the Soviet Union attacked Poland from the east. Poland fell before the end of the month. Hitler's lightning war was first demonstrated in Poland in 1939. 50 years earlier, the Blitzkrieg would not have been possible. The development of the internal combustion engine changed everything. No longer did troops' movement depend on how fast men could march or ride horses or where rail lines ran. Trucks could move men and artillery across almost any kind of terrain. Planes could drop paratroopers behind enemy lines. Tanks offered protection, mobility, and firepower as German troops swept over enemy territory. Today, it is hard to imagine armies without mechanized forces, but at that time, tanks, trucks, and airplanes were new in the war arena. Hitler used those elements to the fullest to take over large portions of Europe with relative speed. As promised, Britain and France both declared war on Germany. As Britain and France continued massing troops for a German invasion, Germany continued its blitzkrieg across Europe. Denmark, Norway, Luxembourg, Belgium, and the Netherlands all fell to German attacks. The forces in each of these countries could not hold back the blitzkrieg attack. France had built up a defensive line along the German border, but with the Netherlands and Belgium conquered, the Germans simply cut around the defensive line and attacked France itself. While the British sent troops to help, nothing could stop the blitzkrieg. Soon, the Allied forces were fighting for their lives along the English Channel. At Dunkirk, the Allies were miraculously saved by bad weather and managed to escape across the English Channel. With the Allied forces trapped against the English Channel, Germany decided to destroy it with its bombers rather than sending in its tanks and men. Good idea. It would have avoided loss of life for the Germans, but bad happenstance because bad weather and fog prevented the bombers from attacking. Over the course of 9 days, British fishermen, boats, yachts, and anything that could float safely carried over 300,000 men across the channel. This miracle, and we're going to call it a miracle because after all, only God controls weather, and God allowed this army to be saved. This miracle saved the Allied army, allowed them to fight another day. Imagine if 300,000 men were no longer in the war. But a miraculous retreat cannot win a war. And in June 1940, German forces marched into Paris and forced France's surrender. Realize this. One of the goals in World War I was to make France surrender, was to capture Paris. Well, guess what? Hitler does this in World War II in just a few months. Just over, less than a year since the war started, and just a few months into the campaign into Western Europe, France surrenders to Germany. In less than a year, Germany had accomplished more than it had done during World War I. France was defeated and out of the war. All that stood in Hitler's way of absolute victory was Great Britain. That's all the material that we'll be covering for today. Hope you all have a good rest of the day. Be good, do good.